So, I am so excited because I wanted to basically talk about how to tap into the highest version of yourself in 2020 in less than 5 minutes. So, this is something I really want to talk about because I see a lot of my clients and I see a lot of people asking me this, like, how can I tap into a version of myself that I don't even know yet, right? Like, that's like a question that I asked my mentors, I would say about 2 years ago, even, up to a year ago. I was just so confused as to how can I even tap into that higher version of myself when I haven't been there, right? So basically, the reason why I felt so called to talk about this is because I can't help but see so many of you guys struggling with this one thing. And I was like, okay, how can we tap into this faster, right? So here's the thing, like, it's so easy for us to be led with our thoughts. It's so easy for us to get carried away by our thoughts and just allow our thoughts to take us on this journey that doesn't serve us, right? And so most of the time, we're not realizing that it's actually not our highest self that is leading the conversation. A lot of it is our ego, right? And if it's our ego, then we're not really operating from our truest self. And I just talked about this on Instagram on one of my latest posts. And I know that you guys loved it because I've been seeing a lot of your messages and you guys been telling me how much you guys loved it. But really, our ego is our face, right? Our ego is what we show to the world. And more often than not, our ego is the one that's controlling a lot of the things that are happening, all of our decisions, all of those things. And if we're not in check and if we don't tap into our highest self, we cannot operate to our fullest potential, right? We're always going to be questioning ourselves. We're always going to be having imposter syndrome. We're always going to be wondering, where is our fullest potential, right? What is our purpose? Okay, so that's also why I was so inspired. I'm like, okay, how can I help my clients? How can I help you guys tap into the highest version of yourself in 2020 in less than 5 minutes? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys several techniques that I use. I have 3 different ways that I go into it. So let's tap into these 3 different ways or 3 different techniques that I personally use to tap into the highest version of myself. Okay, so again, first of all, I want you to remember that you right now, right, your next level dream or your reality already exists, right? It's really parallel to your current reality. All you have to do is align with it. And aligning really means that basically you're matching your vibration to the reality that you want to be in, right? And a lot of us think that it's super hard, that it's like, okay, it's 2020 or that's not me yet. So there's like this gap. But really, it's really just like a blink of an eye. And all you have to do is tap into that. And basically, right now, I'm going to give you 3 tools that you can use to tap into your future self. Okay, are you guys ready for that? Okay, so the first one, which I absolutely love, and I've kind of changed over the years, is basically asking myself or practicing thoughts of my future self. So what does that mean? So basically, I used to ask myself, okay, what would the, let's say, 7-figure Kristen be doing in this situation, right? But I changed that approach now. So now with my clients, instead of asking them, okay, what would the 7-figure Anna do in this situation? Or what would the 7-figure Alba do in this situation? I would ask them, what would the 6 or 7-figure Anna be thinking about this situation? So instead of saying acting, instead of doing, I want you to think about what you be thinking, okay? The reason why is because when it comes to subconscious, like our subconscious mindset and the way we operate, it always goes from like thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? So basically our thoughts create our feelings, and then from our feelings, we decide to do whatever it is that we want to do, right? So everything follows that pattern, right? It's never where you decide to do something and then you feel something and therefore you think something, right? It's always thoughts, feelings, actions. So in the past, I used to say, okay, what would the 7-figure Kristen do in this situation? Well, now I'm like, okay, instead of asking myself, what would I do? I would actually ask myself, what would I be thinking? Does that make sense? I want you guys to think about that for a second. It takes less than 60 seconds for you to actually stop whatever you're doing at the moment and ask yourself, what would I be thinking about in this situation, right? So let's just say it's my ego right now, and I'm like looking at you guys right now. So my ego could be thinking, well, oh my goodness, I'm here talking on live, and you know what? I wish there was like more people here with me, right? That could be my ego speaking. And I would be like freaking out in my mind thinking like, oh my gosh, like there's not enough people here. And that's my ego, right? Whereas if I were to ask myself, okay, what can my 7-figure Kristen be thinking in this situation? And what I would be thinking is that, well, there is so many people on the internet, right? A lot of my clients and a lot of the people that follow me actually watch my replays. So it's not about the numbers even. It's really about the message that I'm trying to share, right? I would trust that the people that are on with me right now at this moment are here for a specific reason, right? You guys are meant to be here to listen to my message. And I shouldn't be worried about the numbers. I shouldn't be worried about all that stuff. Does it make sense? How many of you guys understand and agree with me? Like, in this world, we're so worried so much about our external circumstances that we don't stop to think about why we're even doing it in the first place, right? So my first tip for you, right, which I want you to take away is the next time you do something, okay, let's just say that you're about to post something on Instagram, okay? Let's just use that example because we can all relate to that. I want you to think about what would, okay, the 6-figure or 7-figure me be thinking in this exact moment, right? Instead of acting, ask yourself, how would I be thinking? Because once you think a certain thought in your next level you, then you can do and you can make the decisions based on that person, right? Because we're the same person, really. Your highest self and your ego and like all that stuff, you're still you, right? Like it's still Kristen, right? Like my ego shows up, my fear-based ego shows up, whatever the case may be. But it's really up to me to decide who decides to show up for everyone right now. Does that make sense? I posted recently about, I had like a Christmas video and I was really thinking about like, how can I like send a message about the different faces that we have and that when we show up, right? And it's because I think that we tend to forget that we have all these different faces, we have all these different personalities, and it's okay to honor them. It's okay to say that we have them, but realize that when you're showing up as your highest self. Does that make sense? And let's just say that you're not feeling like your highest self. It's okay to admit that, right? I think that a lot of people forget that we're human beings. And like, if I were to tell you that I get scared too sometimes, right? Like even right now, I'm just thinking like, I wonder if they're gonna be understanding what I'm talking about right now, right? I have like fears as well, but I think by acknowledging them and just being vulnerable and letting you guys know, it's just so much easier and so much more authentic than trying to hide. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's move on to the second one. So the second way that I love to tap into my highest self, right? Let's just say in 2020, is to actually ask my future self for advice. Okay, have you guys done this before? Have you guys ever asked your future self for advice? Okay, so I love doing this because whenever I'm stuck on something, so I'm not gonna lie, like a few weeks ago, I was a little bit stuck on my current launch, right? I was doing something different and it didn't really work out in my favor. And I started to kind of panic, right? Because I was like thinking to myself, okay, it's not working out. What am I gonna do? And instead of like going on YouTube right away, or instead of reaching out to my mentors right away, which is something that I see a lot of people do because my clients do the same thing. They start to freak out and they start to like Google, right? Like Google is like your best friend. You start to Google, you're like, okay, how do I do this? So you're leading with this frantic energy instead of asking and sitting with yourself first and ask yourself, like, what would my future self do in this situation, right? Asking your future self for advice and putting your future self as a third person. And so that your future self can be giving you advice objectively instead of emotionally, which is where you're at that current time. Does that make sense? Again, when you're asking your future self for advice, you're literally telling yourself that you're no longer you right now, right? The Kristen that is right now in this present moment, it's like me projecting, okay, who is the future Kristen talking to, right? Like I'm literally asking that Kristen for advice. Does that make sense? And then the third one that I want to talk about, which is probably the most tangible tip that I give my clients, and all of my clients actually follow this advice, is assigning an alter ego. So an alter ego is basically another version of yourself, right? It could be the version that you just completely made up, but it's your higher self. So what I like to do is that when I assign myself an alter ego, I give myself like something to remember. So like, for example, this ring, right? I could tell myself like, okay, I'm tapping into my alter ego whenever I put on this ring, right? And then I become this different person. So I actually have a lot of my clients try this for themselves. Okay, so what I like to do is actually have something physical where you actually wear or you put on so that like you actually see yourself tap into your alter ego, right? So those are the 3 tips, right? And I think that the last one is the most tangible because you're actually seeing yourself do that, right? Like you're seeing yourself put on your ring. One of my clients put on her glasses, and that's when she taps into her alter ego. You can do a necklace every time you touch your necklace. There's an action involved with it. But again, when it comes to these different techniques, it really just depends on what works for you. Because what I've found is that lately what's been working for me the most is asking myself, okay, what would the 7-figure Kristen be thinking right now? Right? Instead of how would she be acting, how would she be thinking? That's the one that has been working wonders for me currently, because I think that after a while, your subconscious mind craves different things, right? Like it craves like a new assignment or a new project to do. But those are the 3 ways. So I love you guys, and I will see you guys next time.